Hello, myth seekers. Welcome back to another calming journey through the world's most fascinating mythologies. If you're new here, I invite you to subscribe to our channel right now and join our growing community of mythology enthusiasts. And whether you're a long-time listener or just discovered us today, please take a moment to comment below and let me know which city and country you're listening from. I love seeing how our stories connect people from all corners of the world. Tonight, we're traveling to the ancient lands of Egypt, where one of humanity's earliest and most enduring civilizations flourished along the life-giving Nile. We'll be exploring the Egyptian myth of creation, a fascinating tale of how the universe began, according to one of history's most sophisticated early cultures. This story will take us from the primordial waters of chaos to the establishment of cosmic order, introducing us to powerful deities and profound concepts that shaped Egyptian thought for thousands of years. The Egyptians actually had several creation myths as different cities and regions developed their own traditions. Tonight, we'll focus primarily on the Heliopolitan tradition, the creation story that emerged from the great religious center of Heliopolis. This version became one of the most influential throughout Egypt's long history. So settle in, close your eyes if you wish, and prepare to journey back more than 5,000 years to a time when the pyramids were yet to be built, when papyrus scrolls held the sacred knowledge of scribes, and when the mysteries of creation were explained through rich symbolic stories that still captivate us today. Allow your mind to drift to the banks of the Nile, where temple walls were adorned with hieroglyphs and where priests contemplated the nature of existence. Here in this ancient landscape, the Egyptians developed a creation myth that begins not with nothingness, but with something far more mysterious: the dark, boundless, primordial waters of none. Are you ready? Let's begin our journey into one of humanity's oldest creation stories, a tale that served as the foundation for an entire civilization's understanding of the cosmos, their place within it, and the divine forces that brought it all into being. Before there was light, before there was land, before there was even time itself, there existed only none, the vast, dark, limitless ocean of primordial chaos. Unlike many creation myths that begin with absolute nothingness, the Egyptians believed that creation emerged from something that already existed, these eternal, formless waters. None was not merely water as we know it, but rather a mysterious, fluid substance containing all potential for existence, yet formless and void of any definite reality. Within these dark waters slumbered all the elements of the universe that was yet to be: matter, energy, space, and time, all waiting to be given form and purpose. The ancient Egyptians depicted none as a watery abyss, sometimes personified as a deity with blue or green skin who held the solar bark, the sun's boat, aloft at the beginning and end of each day. This primordial ocean surrounded the world on all sides and continued to exist even after creation, lurking beyond the boundaries of the ordered universe. The Egyptians believed that even in the present day, none continued to exist as the waters that surrounded the world and lay beneath it. The annual flooding of the Nile, which brought life-giving silt to Egyptian fields, was seen as a continuation of Nun's creative power, a reminder that the primordial waters remained a source of regeneration and rebirth. This is why many Egyptian temples included sacred lakes, symbolizing the waters of Nun from which all creation emerged. In this chaotic expanse, there existed no light, no sound, no movement, only potential. There was no up or down, no east or west, no division of any kind. There was no conflict because there were no separate entities to come into conflict. There was no death because there was no life. Time itself did not flow, for there was nothing to mark its passage. The waters of Nun simply were, eternal, unchanging, and complete within themselves. Yet within this formless void, something stirred. The Egyptians believed that within Nun resided an intelligent creative principle, a divine consciousness that would eventually take form and shape the universe. Some texts refer to this consciousness as Atum, others as Ra, and still others as Ta, depending on which regional tradition was telling the story. Regardless of the name, this divine spark was about to transform the endless waters of chaos into an ordered universe. The ancient Egyptians recognized that nothing comes from absolute nothingness, that creation requires raw material and creative force. This philosophical insight reflected their observations of the natural world, where the receding floodwaters of the Nile left behind fertile earth from which new life could spring forth. Just as farmers needed both soil and seed to grow crops, the universe needed both the primordial waters and divine will to come into being. As we contemplate these ancient waters of potential, we can imagine ourselves floating in this timeless, formless expanse, suspended in perfect stillness before the first moment of creation. The stage is set for the emergence of the first solid ground, the first light and the first divine being who would set the great cosmic drama in motion. But for now, there is only none, the endless, eternal waters from which all things would eventually emerge. From the infinite waters of none, the first event of creation occurred, the emergence of a primordial mound of earth. The Egyptians called this mound Benben, a word that would later inspire the pointed capstones placed atop obelisks and pyramids. This first hill rose from the waters, much like the islands of silt that appeared in the Nile as its annual flood receded, a natural phenomenon that the Egyptians witnessed year after year, and which informed their understanding of how the world began. The Benben represented the first moment of order emerging from chaos, the first separation of elements, the first duality in a universe that had previously been an undifferentiated whole. This mound was not merely earth, but a symbol of potential and possibility, the first place where life could take root. It was both physical and metaphysical, a tangible manifestation of the universe's first organizing principle. Every Egyptian temple was built upon an artificial mound to symbolize this primordial hill, connecting each sacred space to the moment of creation. Upon this first land appeared Atum, the complete one, the first god who came into being through his own power. The name Atum means both the all and the not yet complete, capturing the paradox of a being who contained everything within himself, yet still had the potential to create more. Unlike gods in many other mythologies, Atum had no parents or creators. He was self-generated, emerging from the waters of none through his own divine will and consciousness. In some versions of the myth, Atum took the form of a serpent before creation, then transformed into a human figure with a pharaoh's crown, symbolizing his role as the first ruler of the ordered universe. In others, he appeared as a scarab beetle, rolling the sun across the sky, or as a heron bird standing on the Benben mound. Most commonly, however, he was depicted as a regal, mature man, wearing the double crown of Upper and Lower Egypt, the original sovereign from whom all pharaohs would later claim descent. Alone on the primordial mound, surrounded by the endless waters of none, Atum contemplated the emptiness around him. He was the sole conscious entity in existence, containing within himself all the potential for what would come. The ancient texts describe how he looked upon the waters and recognized the need for more, for companionship, for diversity, for a complete universe filled with life and purpose. This recognition marked the beginning of conscious creation, the moment when potential became action. In the Heliopolitan tradition, Atum was also closely associated with the sun, sometimes merging with the solar deity Ra to become Atum-Ra. As the first light in the darkness of none, Atum represented illumination both literal and metaphorical, the bringing of consciousness and awareness to the universe. His emergence marked the first sunrise, the beginning of time's cycle, the initial separation of light from darkness that would establish the rhythm of days and nights. The Egyptians saw in Atum a reflection of the creative potential within themselves and within the pharaoh, who was considered Atum's descendant and representative on earth. Just as Atum had brought order from chaos at the beginning of time, the pharaoh's sacred duty was to maintain that order throughout the land of Egypt. This concept of creation was not viewed as a one-time event, but as an ongoing process that needed to be continually renewed through ritual and righteous rule. Standing alone on the primordial mound, Atum faced a profound challenge: how to begin the process of creation. Unlike deities in other mythologies who spoke worlds into existence or shaped them from clay, Atum's method of creation was intimately personal and self-sacrificing. According to the ancient texts found in the pyramid texts and later sources, Atum used his own divine body as the source material for the first beings of the universe. In one version of the myth, Atum took his own seed into his mouth and then spat out Shu, the god of air and wind. Then he vomited forth Tefnut, the goddess of moisture and rain. This graphic imagery was not meant to be crude, but rather emphasized the direct connection between creator and created. These first deities were literally of Atum's own substance. In another, more delicate telling, Atum produced these divine children through his breath and his tears, symbolizing the life-giving properties of air and water. Shu and Tefnut represented the first cosmic duality, the division of one into two complementary forces. Shu embodied dryness, lightness, and the space between heaven and earth. His name is related to the concept of emptiness and the void, but it is a purposeful emptiness, the necessary space that allows all things to exist separately and move freely. Without Shu, there would be no atmosphere, no breath, no distinction between objects in space. He was typically depicted as a man wearing an ostrich feather on his head, symbolizing lightness and air. Tefnut, in contrast, represented moisture, weight, and the principle of connection. Her tears were said to become the first rainfall, bringing life-giving water to the earth. Her name connects to the concept of spitting or moisture, and she embodied the principle of humidity that allows life to flourish. In art, she was often portrayed as a lioness or as a woman with a lioness's head, representing her fierce protective nature over the ordered universe. Together with her brother Shu, she embodied the balanced forces of separation and connection. The creation of this divine pair marked a crucial transition in the cosmos, from singularity to multiplicity, from undifferentiated oneness to relationship and interaction. Through them, Atum established the fundamental pattern that would govern all subsequent creation: complementary duality. Male and female, dry and moist, space and substance. These paired qualities would provide the dynamic tension necessary for a living, evolving universe rather than a static one. Shu and Tefnut were not merely abstract principles, however, but conscious divine beings with their own wills and powers. As the first children of creation, they inherited Atum's creative potential and would soon continue the process of bringing new elements of the universe into being. They were both separate from their father Atum and extensions of him, a paradox that reflected the Egyptian understanding that all of existence remained fundamentally connected, even as it differentiated into countless distinct forms. This creation of the first divine couple established a pattern that would be reflected throughout Egyptian society: the importance of balanced partnership. In the divine realm, as in the human world, male and female principles needed to work in harmony for creation and prosperity to continue. This is why so many Egyptian deities were paired, and why the pharaoh and his queen were often depicted as divine partners maintaining cosmic order together. With the creation of Shu and Tefnut, the primordial oneness had become a trinity: Atum, the creator, and his two children. This divine triad formed the first family and the foundation upon which the rest of the universe would be built. But before they could continue the work of creation, an unexpected event would separate this new family, requiring a quest that would add another important element to the emerging cosmos: the power of reunion and the emotion of love. After their creation, Shu and Tefnut faced the vast, dim expanse of the primordial waters. Curious about the world beyond the primordial mound, they ventured into the dark waters of Nun, beyond the light of their father Atum. In their youthful eagerness to explore the boundaries of existence, they wandered too far and became lost in the infinite darkness. The texts tell us they disappeared into the formless void, beyond the reach of Atum's perception, creating the first separation in the newly formed family of gods. Atum, discovering his children missing, was overwhelmed with grief, an emotion previously unknown in the young universe. This grief manifested physically, as the texts describe that from Atum's weeping eye came the first tears ever shed. These divine tears fell upon the primordial mound and transformed into human beings. According to some versions of the myth, this poignant detail suggests that humanity itself was born from divine sorrow, a profound philosophical statement about the nature of human existence and our relationship to the divine. Determined to find his lost children, Atum removed his a conscious extension of his divine power and perception, and sent it forth into the darkness to search for Shu and Tefnut. This Eye of Atum, later known as the Eye of Ra, became a separate entity with its own consciousness and power, representing focused divine will and protective ferocity. It took the form of a lioness or a cobra, symbols of vigilant protection and deadly force against chaos. While the eye searched the endless waters of Nun, Atum created a replacement eye for himself, explaining why the eye would later be known as the Wadjet, or Whole One. It was the original eye that had been sent forth and then returned. This multiplication of divine attributes through separation and return became a recurring theme in Egyptian mythology, showing how even apparent loss could lead to increase and renewal. After a long journey through the darkness, the eye, finally, located Shu and Tefnut and brought them back to the primordial mound. The reunion was joyous. Atum was so overcome with happiness that he wept once more. But these tears were tears of joy. Some versions of the myth say that these tears of reunion also transformed into humans or into healing plants, symbolizing how both sorrow and joy could be creative forces in the universe. However, when the eye returned to Atum, it discovered that it had been replaced. Furious at this perceived betrayal, the eye raged against Atum. To placate his powerful, wrathful eye, Atum transformed it into the Uraeus, the sacred cobra that would adorn the brow of all pharaohs, symbolizing their divine authority and protective power. Thus, even divine conflict was transformed into a source of order and protection in the Egyptian worldview. This episode of loss and reunion introduced crucial elements into the cosmos: emotions, conflict, and reconciliation. The love between parent and child, the sorrow of separation, the joy of reunion, and even the rage of betrayal. All these feelings entered the universe through this myth, explaining their origin and giving them divine significance. Through this story, the Egyptians explained that emotions were not merely human weaknesses, but cosmic forces with divine origins. The return of Shu and Tefnut to the primordial mound marked a new phase in creation. Having experienced separation and reunion, darkness and light, the divine family was now ready to continue the work of building the universe. With the powerful eye now pacified and established as a protective force, and with Shu and Tefnut matured by their journey, the stage was set for the next generation of deities, those who would establish the physical structure of the world as the Egyptians knew it. Following their return from the waters of Nun, Shu and Tefnut embraced their role as creators. As divine siblings and the first couple, they came together and produced two children of their own, Geb, the god of earth, and Nut, the goddess of sky. With their birth, the fundamental structures of the physical world began to take form, establishing the environment in which all subsequent creation would exist. Unlike their parents, who represented more abstract elements of air and moisture, Geb and Nut embodied tangible, visible aspects of the cosmos that humans could directly perceive. Geb, the earth god, was depicted in Egyptian art as a man lying prone, his body forming the landscape with hills, valleys, and vegetation sprouting. From his form, his skin was often colored green or black, green symbolizing vegetation and fertility, black representing the rich soil left by the Nile's annual flood. Sometimes he was shown with plants growing from his back, emphasizing his connection to agricultural abundance. As the solid ground beneath human feet, Geb represented stability, permanence, and the material world in which life could flourish. Nut, the sky goddess, was typically portrayed as a woman whose elongated, star-spangled body formed the heavenly canopy arching over the earth. Stars adorned her body, and her limbs touched the horizons encompassing the visible universe. In many depictions, She appears to be stretching over Geb, her fingers and toes touching the ground at the edges of the world. The sun was said to travel through her body each night after setting, to be reborn at dawn from her womb, making her a goddess of regeneration and the cyclical nature of time. Initially, Geb and Nut lay together in a tight embrace, so close that there was no space between earth and sky. In this primordial union, they produced 4 children of their own: Osiris, Isis, Seth, and Nephthys, deities who would later play crucial roles in Egyptian mythology and religion. However, the intimate connection between earth and sky presented a problem for creation. With no space between them, there was no room for other beings to exist and flourish. The cosmos remained compressed, its potential unrealized. In their constant embrace, Geb and Nut created a state of perfect unity but also limitation. This situation reflected a philosophical truth the Egyptians recognized: complete union, while perfect in its way, prevents the diversity and movement necessary for a rich, evolving universe. Just as the overflowing Nile needed to recede for crops to grow, the cosmic embrace needed to be broken for creation to continue. This paradox, that separation is necessary for growth, became a central theme in Egyptian thought. The constant union of Geb and Nut also meant that night and day were not yet distinguished. With sky pressed against earth, the sun could not make its journey, plants could not grow upward, and living creatures had no space to move. The cosmos was frozen in potential, waiting for the next act of divine intervention that would create the world as humans would come to know it. This state represented a crucial transition point in creation, the moment before cosmic order would be fully established. The birth of Geb and Nut marked the completion of the first divine family tree, the Ennead, or group of 9 gods, that formed the core pantheon of Heliopolis. From Atum to his children Shu and Tefnut, to their children Geb and Nut, to Nut and Geb's 4 children. This divine genealogy established a pattern of creation through generation that mirrored human family structures. Through this mythology, the Egyptians understood their world as the product of divine relationships, rather than arbitrary forces. With earth and sky now in existence, but still embraced in tight union, creation stood at a threshold. The fundamental elements of the cosmos had been established, but they were not yet arranged in the ordered pattern necessary for life to flourish. The next act in the cosmic drama would require intervention, a decisive separation that would establish the world's familiar structure and create the space in which all terrestrial life would exist. The intimate embrace of Geb and Nut created a dilemma in the emerging cosmos. Their union was so complete that nothing else could exist between them, yet for creation to continue, space was needed. It was Shu, their father and god of air, who assumed the crucial role of separating earth from sky. Using his immense strength, Shu forced himself between his children, pushing Nut upward to form the vault of heaven, while keeping Geb below as the solid earth. This act of separation created the atmosphere, the living space where humans, animals, and plants would eventually thrive. In Egyptian art, this cosmic scene became one of the most iconic images, Shu standing with arms upraised, supporting the arched body of Nut above him, while Geb reclines below. This image appeared on temple walls, coffins, and papyri, serving as a powerful visual representation of cosmic order. It illustrated not only the physical structure of the universe, but also the Egyptian understanding that maintaining separation between cosmic elements was essential to preserve the ordered world against the ever-present threat of collapse back into chaos. The separation was not without emotional consequence. Egyptian texts hint at the sorrow of Geb and Nut at being forcibly separated from their loving embrace. They longed for each other across the expanse of air that now divided them. Geb's mountains were said to be his attempts to reach upward toward his beloved Nut. This poignant detail added emotional depth to what might otherwise seem a purely physical, cosmological event, reflecting the Egyptian understanding that even cosmic forces experienced feelings like those of humans. With this separation, the fundamental vertical arrangement of the Egyptian cosmos was established. The underworld below, the earth in the middle, and the sky above. with air filling the space between earth and sky. This tripartite division created the stage upon which all subsequent dramas of divine and human life would play out. The ordered universe now had structure, boundaries and spaces that defined where and how different beings could exist. The act of separation also established one of the most important concepts in Egyptian theology, that of Ma'at, or cosmic order. By keeping earth and sky in their proper places, Shu maintained the correct relationships between cosmic elements. This separation wasn't seen as a single historical event, but as an ongoing process that required continuous divine effort. If Shu were to tire or fail, the sky would collapse upon the earth, and creation would return to the undifferentiated state of none. This cosmological arrangement directly influenced Egyptian architecture, particularly their temples. The floors represented Geb, the earth. The columns stood for Shu, holding up the ceiling, and the ceilings themselves, often painted blue with stars, symbolized the goddess Nut. When Egyptians entered their sacred spaces, they were literally walking into a model of the cosmos, reinforcing their understanding of the universe's structure through physical experience. Though physically separated, Geb and Nut remained connected through their lineage. Their 4 children, Osiris, Isis, Seth, and Nephthys, would maintain the connection between earth and sky, serving as bridges between these now distant realms. This family connection ensured that despite the necessary separation of cosmic elements, the universe remained a unified, interconnected whole, linked by bonds of divine kinship. The separation of Geb and Nut also created the conditions necessary for the sun's daily journey. With space now existing between earth and sky, Ra could travel across the heavens in his solar bark, bringing light and warmth to the world below. The rhythmic cycle of day and night, so crucial to Egyptian life, was established through this cosmological arrangement, providing the temporal framework within which all other activities would occur. Before their separation, Geb and Nut had produced 4 children who would become central figures in Egyptian mythology: Osiris, Isis, Seth, and Nephthys. Some versions of the myth include a 5th child, Horus the Elder, though he is more commonly known as the son of Osiris and Isis in later traditions. These deities formed the 3rd generation of the Heliopolitan Ennead, and their stories would dominate Egyptian religious narratives for thousands of years, embodying the forces of fertility, sovereignty, disruption, and protection. Osiris, the firstborn, became the god of vegetation, resurrection, and the afterlife. Depicted as a mummified king with green skin symbolizing rebirth and fertility, he represented the life-giving power of the Nile's annual flood and the cycle of death and regeneration seen in nature. Osiris embodied the ideal ruler, just, peaceful, and civilizing. The myths tell that he taught humanity agriculture, proper religious observance, and laws, bringing them out of a more primitive state. His role as judge of the dead made him one of Egypt's most revered deities, as all hoped to be deemed worthy in his divine court. Isis, Osiris's sister and wife, was perhaps Egypt's most versatile and powerful goddess. Known for her magical prowess and wisdom, she was depicted as a woman wearing a throne headdress, symbolizing her connection to royal power. Isis embodied the ideal of devoted wife and mother, yet her powers extended far beyond domestic roles. She was revered as a healer, protector, and magician whose spells could even compel Ra himself. Her cult would eventually spread throughout the Mediterranean world, making her one of the most widely worshipped deities of the ancient world. Seth, the 3rd child, was a complex deity associated with chaos, desert storms, and foreign lands. Unlike his siblings, Seth represented forces that threatened ordered society. Yet he was not simply evil in the Egyptian worldview. His disruptive energy was recognized as necessary for change and renewal. Depicted with the head of an unidentifiable animal with a curved snout and squared ears, Seth embodied ambiguity and power beyond civilization's boundaries. While later myths would vilify him for murdering his brother Osiris, earlier traditions honored him as a defender of Ra against cosmic threats. Nephthys, the youngest of the 4, was often overshadowed by her siblings, yet played crucial roles in Egyptian mythology. As Seth's wife and Isis's loyal helper, she straddled the boundaries between order and chaos. Depicted as a woman with hawk wings atop her head, Nephthys served as a guardian of the dead alongside Isis. Though married to Seth, myths tell that she sided with Osiris and Isis in their conflict with her husband, demonstrating that divine loyalties were based on moral choices rather than mere family ties. Together, these four deities represented the full spectrum of natural and social forces that shaped Egyptian experience. Osiris and Isis embodied the fertile agricultural lands of the Nile Valley, while Seth represented the harsh desert that surrounded Egypt. Nephthys stood at the boundaries between these realms, mediating between different cosmic domains. Their relationships with one another, both harmonious and conflicted, provided mythological explanations for natural phenomena and social realities. The birth of these deities completed the core family structure of the Heliopolitan creation myth, establishing 3 generations of divine beings. From Atum's solitary emergence to the complex web of relationships among his great-grandchildren, creation had progressed from unity to multiplicity, from simplicity to complexity. The universe now contained diverse powers and principles that sometimes cooperated and sometimes clashed, reflecting the Egyptian observation that both harmony and conflict were intrinsic to existence. These children of Geb and Nut would become the protagonists in Egypt's most important mythological cycle. The story of Osiris's murder by Seth, Isis's quest to resurrect her husband, and the birth of their son, Horus, who would avenge his father. This drama of death, loyalty, vengeance, and succession provided the mythological foundation for Egyptian kingship, as each pharaoh was considered a living Horus, son and avenger of Osiris. The cosmic family tree had now produced the divine archetypes that would define Egyptian religious thought for millennia to come. As the cosmic drama unfolded, a significant conflict arose between Ra, who had by now become closely identified, with Atum as Ra-Atum and the goddess Nut. According to the myth, Ra became aware that Nut was pregnant with the children of Geb, and he was troubled by a prophecy. This prophecy foretold that one of Nut's children would eventually replace him as the ruler of the cosmos. Fearful of losing his supreme position, Ra decided to take drastic action against the sky goddess and her unborn children. In his wrath and anxiety, Ra pronounced a powerful curse upon Nut. She would not be able to give birth on any day of the Tu year. At this time in the mythic narrative, the year consisted of exactly 360 days, with no additional days. Ra's curse was absolute. By forbidding Nut from giving birth on any of these days, he effectively prevented her from ever delivering her children, thereby attempting to thwart the prophecy that threatened his rule. This divine pronouncement demonstrated Ra's supreme authority, but also revealed his fear of change and succession. Nut, distressed by this curse, turned to Thoth, the god of wisdom, writing, and magic for assistance. Thoth, known for his cleverness and problem-solving abilities, devised an ingenious plan to help the sky goddess without directly defying Ra's decree. He proposed a game of chance with Khonsu, the moon god, with the stakes being a portion of Khonsu's own light. Through his superior skill, or perhaps some divine sleight of hand, Thoth won the game and claimed his prize. With the light he had won from Khonsu, Thoth created 5 additional days that existed outside the official 360-day calendar. Since these new days were not part of the year as defined in Ra's curse, they fell outside the prohibition. These 5 days were added to the end of the year, existing in a liminal space between years, neither belonging to the old year nor to the new one. This mythological event explained the actual Egyptian calendar, which indeed featured 5 additional epigomenal days appended to the end of their 360-day year. During these 5 special days, Nut was able to give birth to her 5 children, 1 on each day. On the first extra day, Osiris was born. On the second, Horus the Elder arrived, in versions where he is counted among Nut's children. The third day saw the birth of Seth, accompanied by violent storms and unusual events, presaging his disruptive nature. On the 4th day, Isis entered the world, and on the fifth and final intercalary day, Nephthys completed the divine family. This myth served multiple purposes in Egyptian culture. First, it provided a sacred explanation for their calendar system, connecting human timekeeping with cosmic events. The 365-day year the Egyptians observed matched the solar year with remarkable accuracy, and this story gave religious significance to its structure. Second, it demonstrated the theme of limitation and ingenuity. Even divine restrictions could be circumvented through wisdom and clever problem-solving, which was a valued trait in Egyptian society. The tale also revealed important aspects of the Egyptian pantheon's dynamic. Ra, though supreme, was not omnipotent. His authority could be respectfully outmaneuvered by other divine powers working in concert. Thoth, as the deity of wisdom, represents the power of intelligence to find solutions where brute force or direct confrontation would fail. Tanat's determination to bear her children, despite Ra's prohibition, showcased the Egyptian value placed on motherhood and continuation of life. These 5 special days were considered highly charged with supernatural significance in ancient Egyptian culture. They were observed with special rituals and precautions, as they were thought to be times when the barrier between the ordered world and chaos was thinner. The birth of the gods during this liminal period emphasized their role as mediators between order and disorder, connecting the regular cycle of the year with the magical period that existed outside normal time. Through this cosmological arrangement, the Egyptians found meaning in their calendar and in the rhythms of time itself. The creation of humanity in Egyptian mythology varies across different traditions, with several accounts existing side by side throughout Egypt's long history. In the Heliopolitan tradition we've been following, humans emerged from the tears of Atum or Ra when he wept either in sorrow at losing his children Shu and Tefnut or in joy at their return. This poetic origin linked humanity intrinsically to divine emotion, suggesting that human existence was born from the capacity to feel, to experience both sorrow and joy. The word for tears in ancient Egyptian, remi, closely resembled the word for people, remet, creating a linguistic connection that reinforced this mythological origin. This wordplay was characteristic of Egyptian thought, which often found meaningful connections in similar-sounding words. The tears of the creator god transformed into humans upon touching the earth, suggesting that humanity was partially divine, in origin from the god's tears, and partially earthly, taking form on the ground. This dual nature explained humanity's unique position between the divine and material worlds. In another prominent creation account, humans were fashioned by the ram-headed god Khnum, who worked as a divine potter at his celestial wheel. Using clay from the Nile, Khnum carefully shaped each person on his potter's wheel, crafting not only their physical bodies, but also their K, life force, and their destiny. This version emphasized the intentional design behind human creation, with each person individually crafted rather than emerging spontaneously. Khnum continued to form each new human in the womb, explaining why he was invoked in prayers related to childbirth. A third tradition, associated with the ancient city of Memphis, attributed human creation to Ptah, who was believed to have created by conceiving in his heart and bringing into being through the power of his spoken word. In this sophisticated theological system, Ptah represented the intellect and creative thought that preceded physical manifestation. Humans were thus the product of divine conceptualization and divine speech, created through a process that mirrored artistic and intellectual creation. Despite these varying accounts, certain themes remained consistent. Humans were created deliberately, not by accident or as an afterthought. They had inherent value and purpose in the cosmic order. Their origin connected them to the divine, explaining their spiritual capabilities and their awareness of the gods. Yet they were also definitively mortal, unlike the eternal deities from whom they descended. This tension between divine connection and mortal limitation defined the human condition in Egyptian thought. The creation of humanity established a crucial relationship between people and the gods, particularly the creator deity. Humans were made to serve the gods and maintain Mahat, cosmic order, through proper worship, ethical behavior, and social harmony. Yet this service was not portrayed as slavery, but as participation in the divine ordering of the universe. By performing rituals, building temples, and living according to Ma'at, humans played an essential role in sustaining creation itself. Interestingly, Egyptian creation myths lack the element of human transgression or fall found in some other religious traditions. The separation between gods and humans was presented as part of the original design rather than the result of human error. Humans were inherently imperfect and mortal, but this was their nature from the beginning, not a punishment for primordial wrongdoing. This perspective fostered a generally positive view of human potential within accepted limitations. The Egyptian understanding of human creation provided meaning and context for daily life. Humanity's divine origin explained their spiritual yearnings and creative capacities. Their connection to the earth explained their physical needs and limitations. Their purpose, to maintain Ma'at through proper action, gave structure and significance to social institutions and individual decisions. Through these creation stories, Egyptians found their place in the cosmos, children of the gods bound to the earth with responsibilities to both realms. With the basic structures of the cosmos in place and humans created to inhabit the world, the final and perhaps most significant aspect of creation was established: Ma'at, the principle of cosmic order, truth, balance, and justice. Ma'at was both an abstract concept and a goddess, typically depicted as a woman wearing an ostrich feather on her head. This feather was crucial to Egyptian afterlife beliefs, as it was weighed against the heart of the deceased to determine their worthiness for eternal life. But Ma'at was much more than just a judge of the dead. She represented the fundamental organizing principle that made life possible. The establishment of Ma'at marked the completion of creation, the transition from the process of bringing things into being to the ongoing maintenance of the ordered universe. In Egyptian thought, creation was never truly finished, but required constant renewal through the observance of Ma'at. The creator god did not simply make the world and withdraw. Rather, he established a system that required active participation from gods and humans alike to sustain it against the ever-present threat of chaos. Ma'at was not imposed from above, but woven into the fabric of existence itself. At its core, Ma'at embodied the idea that the universe operates according to an inherent rightness or correctness, a perfect balance of all elements that allows life to flourish. This included natural phenomena like the predictable flooding of the Nile, the daily journey of the sun, and the seasonal cycles of growth and harvest. But it extended equally to moral and social dimensions: truthfulness in speech, fairness in judgment, proper performance of religious rituals, and appropriate relationships between different social classes. In the Egyptian worldview, natural order and moral order were inseparable aspects of the same cosmic principle. The pharaoh played a central role in maintaining Ma'at. As both human and divine, the king served as the crucial link between the cosmic and earthly realms. Through proper rule, religious observance, and symbolic actions, the pharaoh presented Ma'at to the gods, effectively renewing creation daily. Temple reliefs frequently show pharaohs offering a small figure of Ma'at to various deities, symbolizing this essential function of kingship. When the king upheld Ma'at, the Nile flooded properly, crops flourished, and society functioned harmoniously. Every Egyptian, not just the pharaoh, had a responsibility to uphold Ma'at through their actions and attitudes. Officials were expected to judge fairly, priests to perform rituals correctly, craftsmen to create with skill and integrity, and ordinary people to honor their social obligations and religious duties. The negative confession in the Book of the Dead, a list of wrongdoings the deceased denied having committed, provides insight into what constituted violations of Ma'at: lying, stealing, causing pain, polluting water sources, killing sacred animals, and disturbing the peace, among many others. The opposite of Ma'at was Isfet, chaos, falsehood, and disorder. Isfet was not merely the absence of order, but an active, threatening force that constantly pressed against the boundaries of creation, seeking to dissolve the distinctions established during the creation process and return everything to the undifferentiated state of none. Natural disasters, social unrest, foreign invasions, and personal misconduct were all manifestations of Isfet breaking into the ordered world. The cosmic struggle between Ma'at and Isfet was ongoing, playing out at cosmic, political, and personal levels. The establishment of Ma'at completed the Egyptian creation story by explaining not just how the world came to be, but how it continues to function. The Creator's work was preserved through this principle of order, which guided everything from the movements of celestial bodies to the behavior of individuals. Ma'at bound together natural phenomena, social structures, political, authority, and personal ethics into a single coherent worldview that saw the universe as fundamentally orderly, meaningful, and good, though constantly requiring maintenance against the forces of disorder. This concept of Ma'at reveals the deeply ethical dimension of Egyptian creation mythology. Unlike creation accounts that focus solely on the physical formation of the world, the Egyptian narrative culminated in a moral principle that provided guidance for living. The cosmos was created not merely as a stage for events to unfold, but as an ethical framework within which gods and humans could participate in maintaining the beauty and order of existence. Through Ma'at, creation reached its fulfillment not in completion, but in ongoing, conscious harmony. The Egyptian creation myth, with its rich symbolism and profound philosophical insights, served as the foundation for one of history's longest-lasting civilizations. For over 3,000 years, these sacred stories shaped Egyptian culture, art, architecture, and governance, providing a coherent framework for understanding the universe and humanity's place within it. Today, as we conclude our journey through this ancient cosmology, let's explore how these creation narratives influenced Egyptian society and why they continue to fascinate us millennia after the temples fell silent. The creation myth directly informed Egypt's distinctive artistic conventions. The standardized ways of depicting human and divine figures, with heads in profile but eyes and shoulders facing forward, weren't merely stylistic choices, but reflected the mythic understanding that true reality combined multiple perspectives. Temple architecture mirrored cosmic structures, with columns representing Shu holding up the sky, floors symbolizing Geb, and star-painted ceilings representing Nut. Even the pyramids, with their pointed Benben stone caps, evoked the primordial, mound from which creation began. Through these visual elements, Egyptians lived within physical reminders of their cosmic origins. Egyptian kingship drew its legitimacy directly from creation mythology. Each pharaoh was considered the living Horus, divine son of Osiris, continuing the line of succession established in the cosmic family. The pharaoh's primary duty was to maintain Ma'at, just as the creator god had established it at the beginning of time. Royal titles, regalia, and ceremonies all reinforce this connection between earthly rule and divine order. When the king performed rituals in the temple, he wasn't merely honoring the gods, but actively participating in the continual renewal of creation, preventing the world's collapse back into chaos. The Egyptian understanding of death and afterlife grew naturally from their creation narratives. Just as Osiris died and was reborn, Egyptians believed they too could experience resurrection through proper preservation of the body and observance of funerary rituals. The journey of the sun god Ra through the underworld each night, followed by his rebirth at dawn, provided a cosmic model for human resurrection. The weighing of the heart against the feather of Ma'at in the Hall of Judgment directly connected individual moral choices with the cosmic order established at creation. Life, death, and rebirth formed a continuous cycle reflecting the patterns set in motion during the first moments of existence. Unlike creation myths that portray humans as flawed beings or as an afterthought in the divine plan, the Egyptian account gave humanity dignity and purpose. Created from divine substance, whether tears, clay, or divine thought, humans inherited aspects of divinity. Their role was not servitude, but partnership with the gods in maintaining creation. This positive anthropology fostered a culture that, while deeply religious, celebrated human achievements and found joy in earthly existence, rather than focusing primarily on a future life. The tomb art depicting feasts, hunting, and family life reflects this appreciation of worldly experience as part of the divine order. The Egyptian creation myth's sophistication reveals a people who grapple deeply with philosophical questions. How does multiplicity emerge from unity? What maintains order against chaos? What is the relationship between thought, speech, and physical reality? These are not primitive concerns, but profound inquiries that continue to engage philosophers today. The Egyptians' answers that diversity is necessary for creation's fullness, that order requires constant renewal through conscious action, that thought and speech have creative power, demonstrate remarkable insight into the nature of existence. Perhaps most striking to modern observers is the Egyptian creation myth's ecological awareness. The Egyptians understood their dependence on natural systems, particularly the Nile's annual flood cycle. Their creation story didn't place humans in dominion over nature, but as participants in a cosmic ecosystem where all elements, divine, human, animal, and environmental, were interconnected. The concept of Ma'at encompassed not only social justice but ecological balance. This holistic worldview, seeing human society as nested within larger cosmic patterns, offers wisdom for our environmentally challenged times. As we conclude our exploration of the Egyptian creation myth, we've journeyed from the primordial waters of Nun to the establishment of cosmic order through Ma'at. We've seen how a sophisticated civilization explained its origins and found meaning in the patterns of existence. These ancient stories continue to resonate because they address universal human questions about origins, purpose, and our relationship with the divine. Though the temples are now monuments rather than living centers of worship, the wisdom embedded in these myths remains a precious inheritance from one of humanity's most enduring civilizations. Thank you for joining me on this journey through Egyptian cosmic origins. If you enjoyed this story, please remember to subscribe to our channel and share which city and country you're listening from in the comments below. Next time, we'll explore another fascinating mythology from across the world. Until then, may you rest peacefully, cradled in the arms of ancient wisdom, as you drift into dreams perhaps as vast as the primordial waters of Nun themselves.